talk about that in a bit. But let's get moving on this. I'm going to start recording now. All right, welcome back. We are COMP397. That's it says web game programming, but we know what it is. In the winter 2022 semester at Centennial, and it's week 3, part 1 of our broadcast and recording. And again, I always try and populate the broadcast and recording on Mondays, and then I kind of go through the same thing on the Fridays, so that way you have you have everything you need at the beginning of the week. All right, so I just wanted to go over where we're sitting right now, and just answer some of the questions I've been getting around the project and the concerns that I've had. And honestly, I think the biggest challenge that we've had for the project is skill set. Okay, so let's go through it. All right, so last week, assignment 1, part 1 was due, but the due date will move. We talked about, in lab 2, we talked about creating a character controller, how to create a script, how to attach it, how to do different things. We did a lot of that. We also made a very simple, a bunch of stuff in Blender. We're going to do more of the Blender hour starting off this week. And we brought in different kinds of tiles from Blender into Unity. We talked about that workflow and the challenges of doing those kinds of things. So that's what we did last week primarily. It says this week, and it says assignment 1, part 1. It's now due this Friday. And I think that's what I want to say here. Now due this Friday at midnight. So I moved it out a week. And why? Because I wanted to give you guys a chance to check it out. It's got to be done. What does this mean for the other due date? The due date that is for the next one. We may have to move that one out too. The challenge with moving out due dates is that it's going to compress some of the requirements a little bit. The requirements aren't going to go away. It's just going to compress some of those things further out. So what are we doing this week? The Blender goal for this week is to build an enemy robot. Oh yeah, we're going to build one in Blender, a very simple one that we're going to build. And it's going to take us a good part of an hour to do that, create the mesh, download required textures and so on, color the robot with different materials. We're going to do that kind of stuff. And perform proper UV mapping, import an FBX into Unity and all that kind of stuff. We're also going to be doing a couple of additional things. We're going to talk about Unity UI. I'm going to do that as a review for those people who've never done UI for Unity. So hopefully you've had a chance to do that. And I'm going to talk about the Unity built-in render pipeline. And we're going to talk about quality settings and how to adjust those. Talk about lighting and shadows and all that stuff. And then we're going to build out our Unity project to WebGL for the first time. And if we have time, I'd like to do this, deploy our site to GitHub pages. I'll talk about how to do that because this is going to be required for the next thing you're doing for me. So these two parts, again, they take a bit of time. If I have time, I'm going to move them out. I'm also going to build a very simple enemy agent. So one thing we're going to do in Unity is build a very simple enemy agent and show you how to move them around the scene with a nav mesh, which takes like 5 seconds to build. Right, so so those things I want to do. So it's a very busy day as normal and lots to do, and let's get moving. So what's due? This lab 3 is this Friday. One thing I'm going to add is, so assignment 1, part 1 has been extended and due this Friday. All right, so that way it's like at the end you have some time to fix it up, and this is available for everybody. So if you've already submitted assignment 1, part 1, and you were not happy with the quality, resubmit. I'm going to take your most recent submission. If you need to, create another video, okay. But for the most part, if you weren't happy with it, you can do it. If you don't want to, and you're happy with the level of quality, then I'm fine with it too, and I'll go from there. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you because I don't want you guys to feel, like I said, stressed out and or say something like, hey, it's not fair that the non-gaming students have a chance to resubmit or get an extension, but what about us? And I agree. So I'm going to give everyone a chance, not just one group, but all groups, a chance to resubmit. If you haven't had a chance to submit, by Friday. Okay, if you're interested in doing that. Okay, questions around this assignment 1, part 1 extended due by Friday. Are you guys okay with this? It's already updated online. Anyone have a problem or any questions around this? Please, let's deal with it now so we can move on and do other things. Are you guys good? Okay. Jerome says no problems. How about our friend Josh? Joshua's got a check mark. That's good. Michael, are you good? Grant's good. Okay, everyone's good. Look, guys, if you still have a problem, no problem, Joshua. Again, I just got to tell you guys that the most important thing for me is that I want you guys to have a good time. All right, like it should be fun to do these courses and instructive. So if you find that there's a lot of stress involved, you know, and it's because you don't know how to do something, then please let me know about it, and I'll do my best within reason to try and adjust things because you know we have that ability. We're also remote COVID. People are feeling a little bit stressed still. It's been almost 2 years now. Coming up on March, it's going to be 2 years that we've been remote for many of us. A lot of us haven't met each other physically and all that kind of stuff as well. And you know, I believe we all, students and professors, have to be flexible when it comes to talking with each other, working with each other, and accepting evaluations. So that's just me. So be, you know, try and be patient with me. And if I also just keep in mind that, you know, I got a lot going on as well, just like you. So if I don't respond to you right away, I got your message and we'll adjust things. Trust me, I'm not going to make sure anyone suffers or anything like that. I want, like I said, end goal is for everyone to learn stuff and have fun. Okay, let's move on. So, so we're sitting at week 3. The topic this week online on the course shell is anatomy of a light. I'm almost finished the stuff for Lab 3's lab report. I'll have it done today before we finish class. That's what's happening there. And we're going to be talking about a lot of little things and how to do all that stuff online. We're talking about lights and what those are, but we're going to start with Blender. Okay, so let's do the Blender hour first. Let's get going on this and see how it works. Okay, so first things first, guys, please pull up Blender. Let's do that now. So again, just like last time, I'm going to right click on Blender here, Blender 3.0, and I'm going to go into Run as Administrator, which I find is far faster to run than if I'm running Blender just by clicking on it. So I'm starting off with a brand new project on Blender. Last week we talked about tiles, and I put up a bunch of tiles for you to use. And this week we're going to build a little robot. Okay, so that's something that we're going to be doing right now. The other thing that I want to do here is talk about some Blender shortcuts. I talked about this before, but there are, if you look at Blender 3 cheat sheet, I'm going to put this link. I mentioned this to the folks on Friday, and this Blender 3 keyboard shortcuts link, I'm going to put this as a link in our live session for week 3 so that you guys have it, right? So that's what it is, the essential Blender 3 keyboard shortcuts list. And so that, you know, just in case you don't have that, or you saw it on Friday because you came on both days, it's right here as an example, and you can always reference this cheat sheet if you want. Okay, let's go back to Blender. So I want to build a robot. I want to build a robot, not a snowman, a robot. And I got to think about how to keep it simple. So we're going to keep it like super simple. We're going to make this robot totally ugly. All right, like an ugly robot. All right, so how we're going to do this thing and what do we want to do. So let's think about some sketches. When I think about my robot, I'm thinking about, first of all, how to build them. So the first part of building anything is think about what you want. All right, so I want a robot where the top part of the robot, I'm just going to draw them out with lines. So I'm going to draw it out. So this is the top part. It's going to be kind of a square head at the top. I'm going to have, you know, kind of some sides like this, maybe. And then I want to kind of build the robot so that the body's kind of curved down like this, right? Roughly. And the bottom of the robot's like this, right? So this is the body, this is the torso of the robot. That's what I want to do in Blender. So this is kind of where I want to go. And I'm not going to have a legs for the robot. There's two things I can do. I can make the robot float. So he's got like a thruster or some kind of like jetpack that makes him float around, right? So no wheels or anything like that. Really easy to do. And for now, what I'm going to do is for the head, it's going to be a dome, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So it's kind of almost like a shape like this, where I have, and you guys are going to do this with me, eh? You guys are going to build this robot just with me. So the robot's going to have a dome head, like so, right? So kind of a half circle. And it's going to have one eye, all right? That's all it's going to have. It's going to have a big eye that kind of goes in the middle of the robot, like this. Okay, that's the robot. And it's also going to have two arms, but they're just going to be blocks right now. So very simple, building blocks, right? So the arms are going to hang off the sides. So they're going to be like this, right? And that's it. That's the robot. Okay. Any design modifications, right? Yeah, exactly. From Wally. Any design modifications, guys? Are you thinking about it? Were you thinking about a tire? Were you thinking about me putting a tire on the robot like this, where this is the tire, and then make it kind of this way? I could do that too, right? But the problem with the tire is that the robot's body is going to have to be, it's going to carve out the body a little bit. We can do the tire, and then maybe we can put some kind of struts or supports that kind of go in here and connect to the tire. By the way, the more modeling we do, the longer it's going to take, right? Ethan says the age of Cyclops has evolved. Yeah, it has, right? Great thing about this design is that this part here is going to either float or be connected by a neck. I don't know. We'll see how it goes when we do it. And how about these arms? Are they going to float like claptrap? Exactly, right? Almost like our own little claptrap. Do we want the arms to float, or do we want connections like so? And if we want connections like this, what is that going to do for our robot, right? We're not going to build hands, but we could build the robot's arms so that they're, and this is like us planning, by the way, guys. This is us talking, right? So do we want to make the arms so that they're not arms, but like actual like pincers like this, like where, the arms are actually like, a different thing altogether, right? Let me see if I can. In other words, let's suppose that it is, just getting my eraser here. Yeah. And how big is that crazy eraser? That's it. So imagine if the eraser is going to work on for me. How about that? Is it going to work? There we go. Oh, undo. You know what I'm saying? So the arm may be like this instead. So the arms are going to be this way. Okay. So first thing, do you want an arm like this? Or do you want an arm like this? Do you want one and one? Well, maybe we can make this arm a cylinder. So it'd be like a blaster of some kind, right? So we can build this robot a little bit more, interestingly. And let's just actually switch back to the pen to do that properly. So something like, do we want this robot to have kind of like an arm that's a cylinder? So this could be like the, one blaster arm and one arm that's maybe like a hook. Is that what we want? And the reason why I'm asking is because whatever we plan to do, maybe it's got a hook, like something like that, right? Like a claw, right? So it kind of does one of these. Is that the kind of robot you want, right? And the first thing we do is do a sketch. We kind of think about the kind of robot that we're looking for, because this is the kind of idea. We have to kind of think of it ahead of time before we plan. And the right thing to do, the next part, is once we do a sketch, we want to build a reference, right? If we can. Okay, we don't have time for a reference right now. We're going to kind of do it on the fly, but it'd be nice if we had a reference. And the reference drawing should have not just the front of the robot, but the side of the robot. So we can take the same elements, right? And guys, it's like super simple. We're not talking you have to be artists here, okay? No one needs to be an artist, but you can be smart about it. So here, let's like copy this one. And the dome head is going to be the same on the side, right? So it can look at you from the front or the side, and then we can think about how wide the robot is. So this is kind of the front view. Okay, maybe this is the front view of the robot, and then this is the side view of the robot. We kind of want to get a sense of this, because it's going to help us when it comes to creation, right? So let's build the side of the robot and see what that's going to look. I'm just going to use these things. And again, we're not going to be too crazy. I'm not expecting you to be crazy. Let's say the robot's going to be pretty thick. All right, how about that? And this part here is going to be like this. So again, we're going to try and make it so that it's the same. And then this will taper down this way, let's say. If we're going to do a wheel or not, we don't know if we're going to do a wheel yet, but let's suppose we are, then it would stop like this on the side, right? And then the arm, so this is, if this is the left side, let's say this is the left arm, so this is left side. So we should probably do both sides, right? See the difference between one arm and the other arm. At least two sides you should have, right? So like the front and the side. And then maybe what we want to do is at least map out what that arm is going to look like. And I'm thinking it's probably going to be something that looks like this, right? And I'm looking at the left side, right? Left side front on, right? So, and then something that looks like this. This is the cylinder arm, right? And then if there's going to be a wheel, it's going to be here. And we can think about the front is this side, right? So let's erase that eye, right? And guys, you can do it with any tool you want to do this kind of stuff. The idea is that keep it super simple, right? So if your eye, how is the eye going to work? Is the eye going to actually have some texture? Is it going to be like an eye, like undo? Is it going to be like an eye like this? So try and keep it at the same level as much as possible, right? Is that the eye, right? You know, as an example, what about the back? Is it going to have a backpack? Is it going to be the same as the front, right? And if it is, you know, we can modify it. So we can kind of go in and say, well, you know what? I want the back to be a different shape. So maybe it's going to be something like this, so it looks like a back, right? Let's see if we can do this kind of thing. So the first part is the drawing. Oops. And I'll give you guys this, you know, as a reference if you want. But the idea is that maybe we want the back to be something like this. All right. So this is the back. This is the front, right? This is what the side would look like. But the back, you can clearly see there's something going on there, right? And if we want the wheel, it will be here or not. And if the wheel is there, then we need to draw a circle. So let's draw a circle with the wheel. And I think it's kind of drawn up from the middle. So let's do it, right? And maybe the wheel is going to have a hub of some kind. And if that's true, there's going to be some extension that goes down this way. So another shape that goes in there, you know, from about right here. That's what we kind of said, right? From about right here down. Something like this, a strut of some kind, right? And we have that arm. What are your thoughts, guys? Yes? No? Do you want the wheel? Do you not want the wheel? You guys are doing this, right? So if you don't want it, now is the time to tell me, right? All right, well, this is the side, left side. Let's make the other side. And the quick way to do that is to take this and flip it. So we would do the same thing, right? So we'll kind of grab all this, right? And copy, paste, put it on the other side. And then what we want to do is we want to flip it around, right? So, so it's almost like I want to scale in, right? Until it is actually probably easier for me just to flip it, undo with thing. I wonder if there's a quick way of doing that. But anyways, you get the point, right? So let's just redraw it because it's just these tools are whatever tool it's going to be. And I got to figure out how to do it. There's a way of transforming stuff where you can flip it on this tool, and I really don't know how to do it. Symmetry I've dead. Symmetry is a good way of doing it too, where you can draw kind of one side and the other side. And that might have been a smart thing for me to do, but it didn't do that. So I think there's a way of doing it where you select it and then you can flip it. And normally what you can do is change the scale so that you can go really, really small or negative, right? And you're good to go, like a -1 across the x-axis or whatever. But let's not draw, just redraw some of it, so it's not a problem. So I'll just take the pieces out of here and do it. So I'll grab this part and copy paste. So we'll move it on this side and we'll just redraw it. It's not a big deal. Do the best we can. All right, so we can see that the arm kind of comes like this. This is the front, right, as an example. Let's try it again. Again, it does not, it's a very simple shape. And the back kind of goes down like this. And, it kind of, it's got a shape where it kind of goes out and kind of goes in like this. It's not perfect, guys, and forgive me. I could have probably done a better job planning this one, but it doesn't matter. So this is kind of where the middle goes, something like this. And again, I'm trying to use this. I'm using this one to guide me, right? Because this is the sides, right? So here's where the middle goes down to something like, looks like this. There we go. So this is kind of the other side. And let's move the eye, right, again. So let's do that. And let's just redraw that part, right? So let's just go back to this and roughly draw that off. There we go. And then just get the eye to be in this side. So this is the other side of the head. So this is the right side. And this is the left side, right side. And so the right side of the robot is different because it's got this crazy arm. So let's do that one. So again, what it would be is the exact same thing we've done in the past, which is, let's just do this properly. So we start off with the arm on the top like this, and this time it kind of goes down. So let's say it would go something like this. And then what you want is for this robot to have a kind of a claw, like a power claw, right, as an example. And just the way this looks, as an example, maybe what we want is that claw to be exactly what that looks like. So start like this, and then you're going to notice that the claw, one part of the claw goes this way, and the other part of the claw, so something that looks like this. Because again, we're trying to match up the claw for what we're seeing, right? So this is the claw part, and there's a connection, and then there's the wheel, right? So again, let's do the wheel, so you can get a sense of what that looks like on this side, right? So something that looks like this. And then we can do that inner wheel part, the hub, which kind of goes like this, roughly. And then we can do the other part, which is the strut that kind of goes down and connects the wheel. And again, do we really want the strut? Do we want the wheel, or do we want this robot to float? It's really up to us. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of basic shapes. Okay. One more thing you could do is make the back, if you wanted to have the back kind of designed. And really what you're doing is you're going to think about what that back looks like. Okay, but just to think about this is our reference. This is what we're thinking about for the robot. Okay, again, questions, comments. Do you think this is doable? Can we get this done in the time we have, right? Or do you think it's too much? What are your thoughts? Because remember the components that we're thinking about, right? We're thinking about, we need to make the head. That's a component. We need to make the body. That's a component, right? We need to make the wheel. That's a component. We need to make this arm. That's a component. And we need to make this arm. That's another component. And we need to put them all together. And so that when we bring it into Unity, it's usable. Okay, Devansh says, looks good. Okay, Devansh. Anyone else have any thoughts around this? The wheel might be hard. Jerome says, with art, it's always hard to tell. One thing to note is this: it's never good enough. And here's a tidbit for you that I always got from people that taught me stuff. It's never good enough until it is the basic saying. So one thing is, it's all around iteration. Okay, so that's the one thing you have to notice, right? So we start off with a basic shape, and we iterate until we get where we want. Okay, that's what it is. We keep on iterating, keep on changing and modifying. All right, until we're at the level that we're happy. Once we've got this shape, we pay forward, right? Because we've got this shape, we can use it in the future, and it can look really, really cool, and it'll reduce some of our load when it comes to getting an organic model. So this is kind of an inorganic model. We're still doing what we're still doing here is we're still doing hard surface modeling, okay, in Blender. Let's do it. So, all right, so here we're back in Blender. And let's think about what we want to do first. I'm thinking that the body is probably a good way to start, and it's pretty simple to do. let's think about, I'm going to use a cube and modify a cube to do that. All right, so I'm going to take the basic cube and I'm going to go into edit mode first. Do this with me, right? And then I want to think about mirroring. Okay, so having a mirror modifier, it might be the best way to go. The robot is fairly symmetrical, right? Yeah, so Michael says, maybe hard with both arms being different. If both arms are the same model, we would be symmetrical, which would cut time a lot. I agree with that. And we could probably do the arms the same. We'll decide that after. But here's where we're going to start off with a basic cube. Okay, and what I want to do with the cube is cut it in half. So it's like kind of an empty box, right? And let me explain what I want to do. I want to create a mirror modifier, right, on the cube itself. Right? And so whatever I do to one side gets automatically added to the other side. Then I'm going to apply the modifier. So anything I do on one side happens to the other side. Nice and easy. All right. And we're going to go ahead and the stuff that's symmetrical. So that way, whatever we do on one side happens to the left side. It's going to save us a pile of time. All right. That's the first thing. So how do we do that first? So first thing first, we need to cut this thing in half. So remember, we can subdivide, right? That's one thing we can do. And let's subdivide it. So again, what I would do is, and there's a bunch of ways of cutting this in half, by the way. You could do, Control R, right? Control R will add in a kind of a middle cut, if you will. So let me do that again, undo that. So notice in here, if I scroll out, you can press Control R. Now, if you go back to your cheat sheet, let's take a look at that cheat sheet, please, really quickly, right? So the cheat sheet is divided into a menu call up, so N for objects properties, Shift S for the pie menu, the viewport if I want to modify the viewport, viewport navigation, object mode, right? And then there's edit mode, which is in here. And Control R is what I'm doing right now, which is a loop cut. All right, so a loop cut means I'm going to make a loop around the model in the middle, and I'm going to, kind of do that. Now, if I press Control R, take a look what happens. When I'm on the left side, it makes a kind of a loop cut in the middle horizontally. And if I'm at the top, it makes a loop cut in the middle vertically, like on a vertical cut. I want a vertical cut like this, and press Enter. What it does, once I've done that, is, and if I press Escape, I got Escape, right? It creates a cut in the middle, right? And additional geometry, right? So it creates kind of vertices here and here, and at the bottom, right? And what I can do now is I can subtract half the model. That's what I can do, all right? I can subtract half the model. So I'm going to try and see if I can work on the right side or the left side and then keep the model in half, right? So the way to do this is, of course, and a great way to do this is to go into X-ray mode. So on the top, we're inside of modeling, let's say, right? The modeling menu. In the modeling menu, you can see that there is a wireframe on the top corner and viewport shading. You can get to this through the Z key as well. If I press the Z key, I can toggle in and out of wireframe mode. Wireframe mode is a great way to work, okay? So, and then I want to look at this from front view, okay? This is front view, and instantly I know that I've made an error, all right? Because why? Look, this is the front. The orientation of the model is very important because that's going to make sure it cuts along the proper axis. This is the front view. This is the right view, right, as an example. So front view, top view. And this is if I go into orthographic view, the right view, right? Notice that that is the right orthographic view. So from the right side, right? And so when you think about this, the front, right, and it makes sense, the front view is so that the X and Y coordinates are this way, which means if I split, I want to split it around this way, right, across the Y axis, across the Y axis, right? Because if I split it across the Y, I can mirror across the Y axis. That's what I want to do, right? So let's undo those changes, right? So I undid the changes, right? And I deselected all. Again, I'm still in wireframe mode. And if you get lost, remember what you can do. File, New, General. Don't save, start with a cube again, right? It's not a big deal, guys. We're going to get there, right? And I'm doing this as kind of a review of things, okay? So again, how do I switch views? So again, there's a couple ways. One, if you go back to your cheat sheet, and if I go back to the orientation, the numpads, if you have a number pad on your laptop, it kind of shifts to different views. Okay, that's what this does. Or you can go to view, if you don't have a number pad, go to viewpoint and go to front. So that kind of shifts it to the front. And it also goes into orthographic mode, which makes it a lot easier for us to cut. Okay, so let's do that first. So again, Control R, right? If I was going to do Control R, it would work in edit mode. Let's switch into edit mode. And again, I'm going to go into modeling to do that. So again, I'm going to go into view front. So I'm going to go to viewpoint front. There it is. Zoom in a little bit and then go Control R. And you can see immediately it goes into the middle of our model. Select it, left click, and then press enter. And then once you've done that, you have a cut across the y-axis, which is what we want, not across the x-axis. That was incorrect last time. The next thing I want to do is, now that we're in front view, this is the way we want to work. We want to delete half the model. And we're going to go into wireframe mode to do that. We're going to deselect all. So select none. So nothing is selected. But I want to select these two sides. And a great way of selecting is using select, box select. Box select mode allows you to select both sides so that both the front vertices that you see and the back vertices are both selected. Let's do that again. Okay, so I'm back to my regular model. Everything is still here, right? I'm in X-ray mode. I'm going slow here, guys, because I want you guys to all get it, right? I'm in X-ray mode. I'm in front orthographic view. I've got nothing selected. Okay, now I want to make a cut across this. So I'm going to use a loop cut, and I'm going to use Control R to do that, and then press enter. So it's Control R and then enter. Okay, that's what you want to do when you do that. Okay, so once we've made this cut, this is the first thing. I know I'm going slow. I want to deselect all, select none. So now I have nothing selected. And then I'm going to do box select mode. Box select. By the way, for those people who don't know where that is, again, let's go back to our cheat sheet, right? When it comes to selection, right, all the selection modes are here too, right? So if I scroll down, you know, there are different ways of, you know, of selecting everything. So if I was to look for selection modes, I can Control F, and if I go box, right, or if I look at select, right, it would be, if it was here, it'd be kind of listed here. I only have I have 19 different words with select. There's a join selected objects. There's merge selection, create selection, lots of really cool things, right, that are here. And there's bevel, which we're going to probably do, as well as different brushes and geometry and a bunch of other stuff. Okay, so that's things that we can do, but box select mode may not be here, and it could be on the extended cheat sheet that you can download from this thing right here, okay, if you really want to go there. Back to Blender. So what we want is to do box select mode, and the way to do that is go select, box select. Okay, that's what we want, box select. And then I want to take the left side and just highlight the left side by clicking and dragging. And then, now this is the next step, I want you to press, I want to delete these. If I press the delete key, it gives me a bunch of options. One is vertices, if I delete vertices. The other one is edges, and the other one is faces. I want the vertices to be deleted. Let's delete the vertices and click vertices. And now it looks like there's half a box. Take a look. If I go into solid mode by going back into layout, you can see that there's half a box. Okay, that's what we're looking at right now. Okay, half a box. Let's go back into modeling mode and go into front, and tell me, guys, are you with me? Check mark if you're with me, X if you're not. A bunch of check marks. I know I'm going slow, right? And some of you are like, come on, Tom, keep going, keep going. We don't have a lot of time. You're right. We don't have a lot of time, but we need to do this right. Okay, thank you for that feedback. So 12 out of 21 of you. So that's pretty good. Thank you for that feedback. I'm moving on. Again, remember, I'm recording this video so you can move on. Next, okay, I want to do the same thing, but because our model is longer, so this, if this is the top, we want to kind of extend our model. So I want to pull this one up here, and I want to keep this part down here. So again, to do that, I'm going to use box select mode. That's the B key. If you press the B key, you know, as an example, if I go select and I want to do the box select mode, right, then the B key will activate that. So I've selected the top vertices, both the front and the back. All right, you can do it all separately too. And now what I want to do is I want to use our move button on the left here. Notice on the left I have this little move button, and I want to drag it up, right, on a number of meters. So it's roughly, now notice I can do this by eye, or I can just go, it was here, and I want to move it up to here. So I'm moving it up 1 meter. So just press the 1 key, so 1, and then press enter. Right. So again, let's undo that change. So I want to kind of, you can do it with the G key. You can say, I want to, move across the Z axis and then 1 meter, and it moves it across the same thing. So the key sequence is like this. You say, I want to move the G key across the, and before you press enter, the across the Z axis by pressing the Z key, right? So move across the Z axis and then 1 meter, press the 1 button. Okay, try that out. So let's see, let's do it again. So undo. Okay, and don't worry about the 3-dimensional cursor for now. We'll move it back into the middle. So again, I want to G across the Z axis. Notice it's a constraint. And then 1 meter, enter. Okay, so it moves it across the x-axis 1 meter. So now my box looks like this. Okay. By the way, if you by accident move your 3-dimensional cursor around and you want it to go to the center, it's Shift S and then cursor to world origin. So again, it's Shift S and then you select cursor to world origin. Okay. All right, so now that I've moved that part, I want to deselect all. And I want to move the bottom part down in here, right? I want to move the bottom part. And again, I haven't mirrored yet. I'm just shaping it right now. I want to think about making a split up here, right, to do that. But before we go in there, I think we got a nice shape to start with. I'm going to go back into object mode or layout mode up here on the top. And I'm going to go to the right side. Notice the right side, we have this little wrench. So again, in object mode, I'm going to go to the right side with this little wrench, right? And that little wrench says add modifier. Okay, this is like for special effects you can do with your object. So go to add modifier, right? What I want to do is I want to add symmetry or a symmetrical split, if you will. Okay, so let's take a look at these. So it says I can UV unwrap, UV project. I could create an array, a bevel, a boolean, a build, decimate, edge split, and there's one called mirror. This is the one we want to use, mirror. So let's go there, mirror. And notice it creates a mirror, right? And it asks you what axis you want to create the mirror on. And if I unclick this, it'll show you the mirror. This is the mirror modifier. And I can add whatever axis I want, like for example, the y-axis. Y-axis seems to do nothing, right? How about the z-axis? That actually adds a mirror. This part mirrors on this side, and this part mirrors on this side. So that kind of adds like shelves, which is kind of weird, right? And we don't want to do that. So z-axis is gone, y-axis is no good, but x-axis seems to be the right thing. There's our mirror across the z-axis. So this is what it's going to look like right now, okay? Mirror across the x-axis. Okay, we're not going to apply the mirror right now. We're just going to keep this modifier on, and we're going to move back into modeling. So notice what happens when we're in modeling. We have the part we can select and the part that's mirrored. There's the part that's mirrored, the part we cannot touch. This part's going to be generated based on what we do on the right side. Okay, so again, I'm looking at it from front perspective, and now I want to deselect all. So I'm going to select, none, and I want to get that split, the edge split up there. Remember that when we made our drawing, we said that there's going to be like kind of an area that goes down this way. Okay. So I want to kind of do it from here. And the other question is it wide enough? Like I think this needs to be even wider, like needs to come to here, right? So let's do that. Let's make this wider. So again, I'm going to use box select mode, and let's bring it wider by like half a unit. So instead of like, where on the x-axis, I could definitely do this. I can say, okay, so G, across the x-axis. Notice I'm pressing G and then X and then 0.5. So kind of half a unit, if you will, half a meter. And then press enter. All right, so now it looks kind of wider, like this. Cool. And now what I want to do is I want to deselect all. And at the bottom, I want to first of all, let's make a cut somewhere around here. So again, what you can do is you can say, I want to make a loop cut, Control R, and I want to kind of come to the side here, right? So again, the loop cut, we're making a loop cut, which is Control R, okay? So I'm going to do Control R, but instead of coming to the top, right? Sorry, let's move that thing back to world loading. Instead of coming to the top, if I do a loop cut, if I look at the top, it'll do a vertical cut. I want to do a horizontal cut, so I'm going to go to the side here. And then I'm going to click onto it, left click, and I'm going to move that loop cut up, right? You know, again, to what it looks like to be about right here. Okay, this is kind of an eyeball. I'm eyeballing it up, right? But this is kind of where it's going to be. Take a look. So that's what it should look like right now, because that's kind of what we drew, right? We drew this. Look, right? Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to taper it, and I'm going to move the bottom to do that. So again, I'm going to go here to the bottom, and I'm going to taper this way, right? So I'm going to move this aside until I feel that it's right. And I'm thinking that it's probably going to be tapered like this, something like here. Again, it doesn't have to be accurate, guys. Also, if you really want to move it, what I'm moving it is like a -1 in there to make it exact. Okay. Cool. So that I've got the shape that I want from my little guy here, right? All right, but we got the shape, but the problem is we also want to make it thinner, because right now when I look at it from the right side, and again, to switch to the right side, we can go to View, Viewpoint, Right, or we can go numpad 3. So 3. That's way too wide, right? It's like super, super wide. So I want to kind of, you know, select everything, and I want to scale it so it's at least only across the y-axis. It's like half as big across the y-axis. So let's do that, because I think half as big only across the y-axis is the way it should go. So again, I want to select all. So now I'm selecting everything, right? I'm on the side, right? So I'm on the side. So I'm in viewpoint right, okay? And I want to scale it. So I'm going to press the S key, and I'm going to choose the Y key afterwards. So S and then Y. Let me do that again. So I'll put it in the chat. So S, then Y, right? Immediately. So S again. So S, then Y, and then something like 0.5. And so now this is what it looks like. Exactly kind of what we drew. Okay. One thing to note is we want to keep the geometry simple as long as possible. Once we get into the geometry and it's pretty crazy, right, then we start, you know, thinking about how complex it can be. Like kind of how, you know, I had a comment from Michael that said, hey, you know, the arms are going to be different. You know, that's going to pose a problem when it comes to, you know, doing symmetry. I agree. But we're going to try it anyway, Michael, because we're those kind of people, right? We're crazy people. How about that? All right, next. So now that we have this, let's keep going back to our reference drawing. So we had the torso, but the back kind of looks different than the front. We need to adjust this right now, right? Because otherwise it's going to be difficult to modify later, right? So how do we do that? Well, we're going to look at from the right side or the left side, one of the sides, and make it so that it's supposed to be what it's supposed to be. So again, when I go to the right, look what I'm doing. When I'm flipping to the right, I'm actually looking at the left side of the model, right? It's the viewer's right, or, you know, from the model. If the model's looking at you, it's the model's left, however you want to see it. We're going to make it, this side is what I want to talk about, right? So I'm just going by pressing the 3 key, and now I'm at the right side, right? So here's the back. This is the back, and this is the front, right? So this side is the back. So the back, we can make it slightly different. And again, if I go back to my reference diagram, it looks like the back starts off the same width as the front, right? Same width as the front. In fact, if anything, maybe I'm a little bit too narrow. What do you think? I'm probably about too narrow. Probably should be a little bit wider, right, than what I am right now. I think I'm probably too narrow, right? And a way to gauge that, if we made a mistake like this, is there's no mistake, right? We can gauge it by actually adding another shape. So remember we talked about making a kind of like a dome over here? Anything we add is going to be mirrored on the other side, right? That's the thing to note. So if I add a sphere on this side, it'll be added on this side, okay? But let's not make it a sphere for now. We want to make it a dome. We can make it whatever we want. We can add in a box on this side here and remove half of it. Okay, what do I mean by that? So let's add another piece of geometry. So we're in edit mode and we're adding something new. So the way to do that is to do if I wanted to add a cube, I could do that here. See that? I can add a cylinder, right, as well. I can add a cylinder, which is kind of neat. Cylinder might not be a bad idea. It's going to kind of cover things as well. I can add a torus, which is like a donut, or a circle, which is neat as well, right? Or a cube or a sphere. If I add a sphere, I need to remove half of it, right? That's what I want to do. And I need to do that, you know, somewhere else, not in here, in order for me to do that. But if the sphere is going to be half done, from what I drew, it's going to be kind of to here, right? That's where it's going to go, from here to here. But it looks like from the side, we're just too narrow. We need to come out just a little bit, maybe another, you know, up to here, I think might be better, right? So something like that. So let's do that. Let's fix the side first. So again, I'm going to say that I'm going to scale across the y-axis, maybe something like 1.5. Okay, you should know how to do that now. So there it is, a little bit wider now. Right? And let's check with our model. Maybe even less than 1.5. We can do maybe 1.25 or 1.3. Let's try it again. So undo. And then do it again. Scale across the y-axis, 1.25. Let's check it again and see what it looks like from our model. That looks a little better. I'm more satisfied with that level of thickness. That might be the right level of thickness now, right? Compared to what we had before. Cool. Now, the model on this side stays the same, but it kind of comes out and then goes down and then comes down like this. So we need to do that to the back. In order for me to do that to the back, I need additional geometry. Because the only way I can do that at all is to have geometry. I can't move stuff that way I don't have geometry. So I'm going to deselect all, and I'm going to do another loop cut. All right, so again, Control R, and move that loop cut somewhere up at the top where I think it's going to be somewhere like right here. Again, take a look at that other cut, something like that looks like this, almost the same level. And what I want to do is I want to grab just these two with the box select mode, right? And I want to draw this out a little bit. And I want to try and play with that because it looks like it's just slightly out from where it was. So kind of something like this. So slightly out. And now we see a problem. We see how this one bends this way and that one bends this way. I don't really want that. So let's undo. In fact, what I want is an extrude. So I want to press E for extrude, and I want to extrude this way. Now that is what I want. Okay, cool. So I want to do that. So I extrude out just a little bit. And so we have a bit of a back. Now what that looks like is something that looks like this. E for extrude. Okay. Cool. And what I can do is I can angle it. So like what I did here is I came out and then I angled it down and then I chopped into it, right? So I kind of angled it. So I want to rotate, right? Just a little bit. So I can press the R button to rotate. So something like looks like this, right? So that's kind of what I drew here, right? Kind of. But now this part needs to come in more, right? So what I want to do is I want to grab this vertex and this vertex and move that in. So let's see if I can do that. So I only want to grab those two vertices. So with a little thing, you can actually zoom in here if you want to. You can come in like this to do it. right? And I want to move this in like something like this, right? Don't worry about this thing here. It's what I want to do first is come in to some degree a lot more than what I was, because this is the center line. So I want to come in even more than that. Something like that looks like this. So maybe something like this. Okay. Again, I'm using the grid to help me out. So like let's say 0.2 units, if you will. And at the top, what I want is I want to move this vertice back out, right? Because notice it's a taper, right? But only slightly. So this tapers straight down like here, but this is going to go out, let's say a couple of notches to here. So again, what I can do is I can use box select mode and just select this one and then drag it back out to about here, right? Now, what does that look like? It looks like this at the back. Okay. And if you're not satisfied with that, or if you want to do a different thing, this is the time to change your design. It's totally fine to do that. So how do I change that design? Well, you know what? I feel like this is probably not in the same vein as this one. Maybe we want to move this vertice back at least one to here, and maybe move this vertice out at least one to here. So let's do that. So first I'll move the top vertex, so here. And then I want to move the bottom this way. So again, I'm selecting and deselecting when I'm doing that to create the thing that I want, the look that I want. Cool, so I've got that kind of tapered back idea. It's pretty simple right now. And we're keeping the polygons low, which means I'm only making the cuts I need to make. Remember, when I made one cut, I made a cut in the front too, right? Okay, cool. So that is the back area here as an example. And let's go into the side mode and see what we got. Yeah, looks pretty good. And maybe, you know, as an example, let's take a look at our model. This one kind of tapers in too, doesn't it? This front part, it kind of tapers down, right? We're making it go straight. Well, that's pretty simple. We can move this vertex in, right? Let's see how that looks. So again, I'm going to make sure that everything's deselected, and then just move that vertex in. So again, I'm just going to move it in until I feel that it's right. How's that? Okay, that's the center line and whatever. And then there's the wheel. If we're going to have a wheel, it's going to be here, right? So it's not bad. And this is going to take up the whole space to there. And no, it's got to come in more, one more. Something like that. And again, looking at it now, it looks kind of like this, where kind of it's tapered. There's the body of the robot so far, right? Okay. Again, not exactly our design, but getting there. If we're going to make a cut to the robot to make the wheel happen, it's got to be now. If we're going to do the wheel. But if we don't want the wheel and we want to be able to fit in a future wheel in the next part, we can do that, but we need to make that change now. So again, looking at it from the front view, right? Let's deselect all, and now let's scroll in and think about how we're going to make that cut. I want to make a cut that goes like this, so to fit in a pretty fat wheel. And looking at the robot, it kind of goes, if I was going to break the torso down into parts, so this is the top part, and then this is the halfway mark. This is kind of like a quarter. So quarter, quarter, another quarter. So basically there's 3 quarters, right? So or 4 quarters. So 1, you know, and then maybe this comes down to here. 1 comes down to here, 2, right? 3, and then 4. So maybe up here, or where even where the horizon is, which is the x-axis, this is as far as I want to take the wheel, right? If I was going to make the wheel. So I want to make a cut, and it's going to be pretty thin, like up here. So let's do that. So we'll say loop, cut, and slide. Again, Control R. And now look what happens. Once I have that, the loop, cut, and slide, I can slide it anywhere I want. So I want to kind of make this the loop that goes here to this level right here. So it's going to be pretty thin at the top. Again, guys, it doesn't have to be super accurate. Remember, learning is involved. Okay, cool. So we got a loop cut there, and I want to cut right across the x-axis because I want to be able to cut my geometry. So again, Control R, and you can see that if I press it, I can move that cut anywhere I want, but just keep on. So that's where I want it. I want it there. So now I have a vertex there, a vertex there, and a vertex there, and a vertex down there. I want to remove those vertices. So I want to remove this one, this one, this one, and this one, but I want to do it for the front and the back. Let's do that. So I'm going to get B select mode and select only those vertices. So only these vertices. So now you can see that that part from front and back are both selected. Notice that. And I want to delete them. So we'll delete, press the delete key, and then just delete. If I delete the vertices, then all of this will be gone. Look, delete vertices, then all of that's gone. So that's not quite what I want. Undo. What I want is for the faces to be deleted, but the vertices to stay. All right, so that's what I want, at least right now. So again, delete, and I want to delete the faces. So faces get deleted. Okay, so now this is what it looks like. In object mode, right, it would look like this. And this is where the wheel would go eventually. Okay. Again, not a very exciting robot, but we want to keep it simple with the time that we have. Okay. So going back to modeling, we've got this piece. I need to put something in there because this face, if I go back to show you what the face looks like it's empty now. Look, it's empty in here. So I need to fill up these faces. And the way to fill up these faces is to angle it. And then what you want to do is just select these vertices and then click F for face. So again, I want to go this one, this one, this one, and this one, and then click F for face. So that creates that face. And then I want to do this one, this one, this one, and this one, and click F for face. So now that closes it up. So you just create the 4 vertices and click the F button, press the F button for face. Yeah, it's the same thing. I'm just showing you different ways, Joshua, for sure. But it's fun. Like, again, this should be like nice and relaxing for you. It should not be, if this is stressful for you, it should not be. Just chill. So now this is what my front is going to look like. My side looks kind of the same because the side's not going to change, right? But I have a space for the wheel now. This is where the wheel would go if we're going to include that. And if we're not happy with the middle, like we want to make the wheel kind of like maybe a diamond, because this might be more interesting to look at, we can do that. We can go, okay, well, let's modify our design. You know, as an example, the wheel will go here, but maybe you want to make it so that it is, you know, kind of angled up. Well, that's easy. We can just go into the middle right here, and let's move that part, that vertex up a little bit to make almost like an angle. Right, so just kind of something like this. So it's not exactly, you know, angled up. So this is what it would look like now, right? Again, I'm using B select. B select in wireframe mode selects the front vertices and the back vertices. That's what I'm doing here. Hey Brent, how you doing? See you. All right, does that make sense? To give it more character, a lot of times what we want to also do is think about where the arm is going to hang down. The arm is going to hang down here. And what we can do is we can kind of push out these vertices to the right a little bit, just to give it a little bit of a hump as opposed to the way it looks right now. So again, from the front view, I'm going to go into wireframe mode, deselect everything, use B select for this selection mode, and just push this out. So it's kind of a little bit more, you know, differently shaped than just a straight line. It's just more interesting this way, right? So again, it really depends on how you feel, but I think that might be better. The other thing that I want to do just to shape the torso is from the side, right? Where you see that the chest is kind of like there's no chest, right? And it wouldn't be bad if we had this vertex here pop out a little bit, maybe this vertex here as well, only on the chest. So I'm going to select this one and this one, but not this one, right? So those 2 vertices right there, and then go from the side view and then pop them out. So kind of move them out this way. What that looks like is this. So we have a chest kind of thing now happening. Again, you can make it as simple or as complex as you want. I can add more. The more geometry I add increases the complexity of my model, right? And so what I can do is if I want to make another cut in here, I can make a, kind of a waist if I want to. Let's do that. So again, here's our waist, right? Enter. And then what I can do is I can push in the waist this way. So the legs are here, or the float, this part of the model that's going to float. And I can push in this part of the waist. And I can do that by pressing the scale key. I can scale it in just this way. Now, if I scale it in from both sides, you see it breaks the middle of the model, right? Or I can scale it in, from only one side by just selecting the, going back into front mode, deselecting all, right? Going into wireframe mode and selecting only those vertices that I want to move. So example, I don't want to move this one, but I want to move these two, right? So again, I can just kind of select those two vertices and just move them in, almost like to cinch the waist. Okay. You don't have to make it like mine. If yours look different, yay, it's awesome if you're making a different one than me. But the basic shape for the torso is done, I would say at this point, from what I want. Because if I look at my reference diagram, it's even more than I wanted, right? So it's even more of a pushed out thing and everything else, right? All right, we're going to keep this shape separate, right? This shape. We're going to call this on the top right in the outliner. We're going to call this torso, right? Here's the torso. And what I want to do is do the head separately, right? Because the head and the arms, if I do them separately, it might be better. Okay. Let's do the head next. Now the head is going to be like a half circle. That's going to be basically is going to be a circle that's cut in half, right? Now I could apply the modifier, but I have a feeling that's not a good idea. If I added a circle, that's another thing I could do. I could here add a circle, right, or a sphere, and then cut it in half up here. The challenge is, remember what I'm going to be doing, right? If I add a sphere here, it's going to add two spheres. Let me explain, because I'm in mirror modifier mode, right? So if I go something like Shift A to add in a sphere, here's my sphere, and I move the sphere up to here, right? So there's the part of the sphere, because it kind of adds the sphere wherever your three-dimensional cursor is, right? And if I was to cut the sphere in half, first of all, let's go into wireframe mode to do that. So this is a way of doing it, but remember I have two spheres here, to keep that in mind, because I've got this side already, right? And I want to get rid of half of the geometry. One thing to note is the sphere is kind of symmetrical for the most part. We want to get rid of the bottom half because that's the dome. And we also want to squish it down because the dome in our diagram looks like a squished down sphere, right? So here's the sphere first. So we're working with the sphere that I made here, and I just moved up. That's all I did. Let's do that again. Okay, so again, I'm adding it. You can do that by add UV sphere. When you add a UV sphere, you also get to decide on the bottom left how many segments. This is key. The more I add, the more complex the UV sphere is going to be, right? And I've added 32. I'm keeping everything the way it is, just default. Okay, that's the first thing. And then I'm going to move it up. When I move it up, I'm going to just use the keys to do that. I'm moving it up to where I think it should be right now, so I can play with it, all right? And then I want to get rid of half it. So I'm going to deselect all, right? And I want to get rid of this part of the geometry, the bottom part. So the way to do that is to go select all the bottom parts here, and then kind of delete. I want to delete all the vertices. So now I have half a sphere. And if I look at it, you can see that there's a dome, kind of like this, right? But also, I have to keep in mind that it's not only this side, but I've got double this side happening. So I got to get rid of the left side of the sphere as well, because otherwise I'm going to mirror twice. So this is the tricky part, okay? So I got to zoom in, because at the top, right, I have a vertice right there. I need to get rid of this one and all these ones on the left-hand side. So I zoomed in with my middle mouse wheel, like scrolling in. And also what I want to do is look at the top, and I only have one center area there, which is kind of cool, okay? So I just have to get rid of these vertices on the left side of this part. So again, select mode is my friend, right? But I need to make sure that I can select only the left side of the sphere, but not the middle vertex. And then press delete and kill the vertices. Now you can see that even though I did that, I still got half the sphere left because I'm mirroring. I've got this mirror modifier happening. So how does this look? Well, if I look at it in object mode now, it looks like this. See? I want to bring that down and I want to squish it too. So it's not as round as this, right? So let's do that next. And I also want to fill in the bottom. The one problem that I have is I've killed the bottom. There's no, because I don't have anything here, I need to fill in the bottom part with vertices, right? And there is nothing like that right now. Alternatively, here's an alternative method. I could have capped this off in the bottom. I could have made a cylinder, and I could have done it that way too. I could have capped off this bottom part with the cylinder, right? And we can still do that, right? Which might look pretty simple as well. Remember that a cylinder is just another object that I can bring up, and then I can align it with my sphere. Okay, let me explain what I'm going to do. Because it's easier to cap. So I got to kind of close the bottom now, right? Because otherwise it's going to be an open bottom, and that's going to be terrible. So let's bring the cylinder in first. So again, going back into modeling mode, I've got this part in front view mode, and I've got the front part of the sphere. This whole part is empty. Let's bring in a cylinder now. So leave that sphere up there, half sphere. And notice wherever the three-dimensional cursor is that where the cylinder is going to come in. So Shift A, or you can press Add Cylinder, right? Remember that there's 32 cuts, all right? Let's see if we can align that. So Shift A, I want to bring in a cylinder. On the left, you can see how many cuts. I have 32 vertices, which should align nicely with the sphere, should. If they don't, then we're going to abandon this idea, but let's see if we can align them a little bit. So again, what I want to do is on the top, you can see that the vertices for the cylinder are pretty good. One thing to note also is, and let me undo that. Let me undo that, that cylinder stuff. I want to add a cylinder. Again, you can add a cylinder here, another shape, basics, primitives. Notice that the cap fill type, cap fill type by default is an n-gon. Okay, that's not good. N-gons are bad for stuff. The other option for the n-gon, you can go with a triangle fan, which looks like this, a triangle fan. And that's kind of like what we had before, a triangle fan, right? We have the middle vertex and so on. The challenge with the triangle fan, right, is that it depends on if half of the vertex, if I can remove half of it and still have the other pieces, right? That's the thing I want to do. I want to kill the top of the cylinder, but I want to keep the bottom of the cylinder because the bottom of the cylinder has all the closed areas that I want. So that's why I'm really using the cylinder. I'm creating a triangle fan from the bottom of the cylinder. I could do it myself too, but it just makes my life a lot easier when I do that. And then I can compress everything. So I'm using a triangle fan. Let's undo that change again. Let's go back to this. Let's add the new cylinder. I'm doing it step by step so you see what I'm thinking. I'm changing the cap fill type. So normally it's like down here, right? I bring it up and I change the cap fill type to a triangle fan. All right. Now, what I want to do before I bring it up there is I want to compress it a little bit. So I want to scale it across only the z-axis a little bit, just to bring it in band to what I want. It's just easier this way. All right, and then bring it up. Notice how they're very close now, right, to capping off this part right here. Okay. I don't need half of the geometry. So again, bringing this down, I'm doing it in parts so you can see it. I can deselect all and delete this half of the geometry. So again, just like before, I'm going to use B select to delete half of the geometry. And notice that it's still there because we're mirroring, right? Which is a great thing. Now I need to go into, kind of solid mode for a second so I can see it. Solid mode. Notice what I have. I have this part here, and I have these faces there. I don't need the top faces because they're going to be inside the head. I don't need the top faces. I want to get rid of them all. I can use circle select just to select the top faces and get rid of them. So again, I can use circle select mode, bring that down, right? And what I want to do is select half the faces. So again, I'm going to move into face select mode on the top left, right? Go into circle select, select the faces that I want to remove by using circle select, right? And then press delete, the delete key, and I want to get rid of faces. So it's kind of like an open little thing, right? Kind of neat. Again, let's undo that change and do it again. So again, what I did was I have this cylinder that's compressed. Don't worry how big it is right now because we're going to change it. And I want to go in here and I can use, from a certain angle, I can just use circle select mode and just select all the faces that I want like this, escape, and then press delete and delete the faces. And now it deletes everything. Okay, now I want to marry these two pieces together, but I need to bring them really close together. And I want to do that in wireframe mode. So again, notice that these are, I'm in face select mode, right? I want to shift back into vertex select mode. I'm going to select the box select so I can select everything. And I want to move this very close to the top, very close, right? And what I want to do before I marry these together, I may want to think about compressing this first, right? Because if I compress, if this becomes one object, I compress everything. I just want to compress this part. And when I mean compress, I want to scale this part so it's in. So to do that, right, I want to grab everything here and I want to scale it so from the y-axis. So scale across the y-axis, right? That's what I want to do. So I want to scale across the y-axis. Okay, so how do I do that? Scale across the y-axis, right? That's the y-axis, right? Scale across the z-axis is really what I meant. And I want to bring that in so it's much flatter. That's what I want to do. So what I mean is scale across the z-axis and then just scale it down so it's like a reasonable shape because I want to get that look and feel to it. And let's take a look. We'll use it to that. I'm using the grid here to help me. So I'm going to do it like 3 little boxes high, right? And if you look, take a look at our diagram and see how that looks. Is it too much? Right. Well, I'm also going to add this piece to the bottom. So that's something that I'm going to add in. I think it might be okay because I want to make the bottom, maybe I didn't draw it that way, but I want to make the bottom that way. So, so let's leave that. That's pretty good as a scale. And then we're going to marry it together and bring it down again. So here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scale this down. So scale across the z-axis. So it's much thinner. Let's say 1 block. And we can bring it up and do it exact. So scale across the z-axis. Okay. And now that it's about 1 block, I want to bring it as close to the top as possible. So again, what it would look like is something like this. Got the bottom closed with a fan. I got the top close, right? And if I look at it from head on in wireframe mode, and I zoom in, I'm working in a piece of the robot, but I want these things to be really close, like this, like super close. Maybe even on top of each other, close. Okay. And then deselect all. Okay, so what this is now that they're close, I want to marry a lot of the objects that are close by. So what I want to do is I want to say select all of them, include both the top and the bottom. And what we want to do is we want to merge, right, nearest, right? So I want to do a merge, and I want to merge by distance. So it's the M key for me, merge by distance. So if I press the M key, it says, how do I want to do it? Do I want to merge at center? I could do that. I can merge at cursor. I could collapse, or I can merge by distance. If I go merge by distance and I click by distance, it tells me how close I want it to be, right? So notice that it didn't do anything, right? Because it's not close enough. It's not close enough. So I can increase this size, the distance, and it tells me how many I got. I got about 17 vertices. When I go beyond something like 0.01 meters, I'm merging 17 vertices together. All of these vertices are merging together into one, and I'm removing duplicate geometry. Let's do that again. So imagine if I got this, here's my separate thing, and I'm moving it close. I'm moving it so close that they're kind of on top of each other. If you want to really be accurate, really super be accurate, then you could zoom in, right? If you really want to be accurate, zoom in and bring those vertices really close together, like they're on top of each other. Okay. Then click the M key for merge by distance. And when we do that, it says, it'll tell you how much it removes. So what you can do is you can increase that number, right, to tell you how many of those it removes. Okay. And now when I deselect, you can see that there's a line, like double lines, right? So if I undo, it's undo, undo. Okay. And I want to merge by distance, right? That's what I'm doing here. I'm merging by distance. So I got this thing here, and I want to bring them as close as possible, like almost like the vertices are on top of each other, right? So once I bring them as close as possible, right, then I can use a merge function. Again, I'm just eyeballing it here, but I want to do a merge function so that way they're kind of right on top of each other, right? So that's the move. And then if I press merge by distance, right, if it says remove 0 vertices, that means it's not close enough. So I can increase the distance, right, that I want to merge. If I increase it too much, right, it's going to do weird stuff like this, which is not what we want. So we don't want that much of a distance, right? I want it to the point where if I do, there's going to be a point where it removes it physically from you. And if you remove nothing, right, from this, because I'm also selecting everything else. All of these are selected, right? So I don't want to do that. I don't want to just select all of these. I want to deselect all, and I want to only select this part, the place where I'm merging. So select only this place here. So both the ones I moved and the ones that existed, and then do a merge by distance. And then it should say, as I move this slider to the right, it should say 17 vertices or something like that. Then press enter to accept that. Okay, now I don't have a separation. Everything is one, and I've removed duplicate geometry, which is super important because otherwise I'm going to have geometry on top of geometry. So I've got the head, right? I've got the head. There it is, the head of the robot. I need to move this down now. And let's do it. So let's move this down. So somewhere where it should be, something like that. Okay. And let's see what it looks like on the side. This is important too. So let's see what it looks like on the side. So on the side, it's way too wide, right? It's way too wide. So what I want to do is I want to bring this in on the side now, right? So that the head is aligned with the top of the body, because that's what I drew, right? So I kind of drew it so it's exactly the size of this part. And from the front, it should be what I drew, right? So again, looks like it's right from the front. On the side, it needs to come in, and I'm going to scale across the y-axis to do that. So scale across the y-axis. Don't worry about that. Let's do it again. Undo. Scale across the y-axis. Let's bring it down. When we look at it from the side, now it looks pretty good from the front, and it looks pretty good from the side. What does it look like in real life? Well, it looks like this. That's what the head is going to look like. That size. That's what we made when we drew that object, right? We made this kind of robot. Okay, what's our timing like? 4:56. We're kind of at the end of the Blender hour, right? So going back to what Joshua was saying, or before, maybe, or Michael, maybe what we do is we make just cylinders, same arms on the right and the left for now, and then maybe in a future video we can modify this guy, right? Because we're timing out. I'm just trying to show you techniques, right? And what about the neck? Do we want it to be connected or floating like this? Maybe the floating thing is kind of a neat thing. Remember, it's going to be all one big game object for Unity, so Unity doesn't care. Okay? let's add the arms. So, and then we'll be done. So, because we're going to time out. No wheel, because we timed out of that too. I mean, I can add the wheel. The wheel is kind of like, it'd be a half thing that goes here. But for now, it's just going to float. Okay. And what about on the side here? How would the arms work? Well, they're going to kind of stick out and float as well. Let's make them cylinders. So again, how do we do that? And how far are they going to go? They're going to go down to the bottom of this part right here. So this is where they're going to go. All right. So again, let's add a cylinder. So again, Shift A to add a cylinder. The cylinder complexity is 32 by 32. That's fine. We could probably cut that down in terms of complexity. But what I want to do is I want to move the cylinder out so you can show you that it's mirrored, right? Whatever I do on the right, I do on the left. And let's move it up. So it's at the top. By default, it's a fan because that's where I left it last time, which is a good thing. Okay. Now the arms are way too big. Let's scale it, the arm, across the x-axis. And actually, let's scale it also across the y-axis, but we're going to do it from both sides. So first, let's scale it so it's not as wide. So scale it across the x-axis only. So something that looks like this. Again, my scaling is probably around, from a z-axis, it's 1. On the x-axis, it's 0.196. Let's go 0.2, just to make sure it's on the scale on the x. And if notice, I can also do numeric scaling here too. So I can say on the z-axis, this way, it's 1, but on the y-axis, it's also 0.2. So I can do that kind of right away. And that's what it would look like preliminarily, right? I can drag the arm closer in so that it can be kind of closer to the object, right? And this is kind of the idea that something we pictured for the robot, right? So if I look at it from front head on, this is kind of what it looks like. And now we can make adjustments. We can say that, hey, there's certain things I like about this thing, and there's certain things that I don't like. Let's go back and look at my drawing, right? My drawing is kind of like, it almost looks like it's too wide when I look at this thing, right? So kind of a little bit too wide relative to everything else. We could probably drag this stuff in. All of this can be probably dragged in. We don't have a wheel anymore, which is probably something we can do. This looks good, but you know what? There's a lot of complexity here for a simple cylinder, right? So maybe what we do is we try that again. So let's just delete it, the whole thing, and try it again. So again, Shift A to add a cylinder, but instead of 32 cuts, vertices, let's bring the complexity down to like something like 16, which makes it much simpler. Actually, that's kind of like a neat as well. It's kind of look neat, right? And again, what I want to do is scale it right away, right? And I want to scale it, numerically, right? So I remember I can rotate and scale the way I want. So I can scale it across the x-axis, right? And I can kind of go to where I think it's going to be. And I know that it was 0.2. And I can go to 0.2 on the y, on the y. So now it gives me that size, right? That's the size I want. That's less geometry. And I think we can even go simpler than this. So let's try it even more simple than this. So again, we'll just delete it and even go far simpler than that. So Shift A, add a cylinder, and let's go down to 8 vertices. The other way around, Tom. 8 vertices. Okay. Again, I'm trying to reduce complexity, right? Scale across the x-axis, and I want to move that number to 0.2, move the y-axis to 0.2, and now we have something that's much more reasonable and looks better in many ways, right? So if I look at it from the front, you can see that I've got my 2 arms, they're cylinders. If I really want to, I can taper them just to make it somewhat different. So I can go here into wireframe mode and grab the front and taper it. So kind of scale it in across the x-axis. So it doesn't look exactly like a cylinder like it would be before. So it's not bad. And you know what? If we scaled it across one axis, which looks okay, we can scale it across the other axis too. So We scaled like 0.7, and we'll scale on the y-axis about 0.7 as well, just to be more realistic. There we go. So not bad. And let's move it even closer because it's probably too far out. And so it looks kind of like this. And now we can look at our entire object and kind of assess. Do we like it when it's in, this? Is it too wide, right? And I think it might be just a little bit too wide. The floating arms are cool. We can always move them and make it different, but this is a good start. So I want to bring this in just a touch because it doesn't make sense. So I want to kind of scale it this way, like from this side in. So again, going into wireframe mode, selecting just the vertices I want to move, right? These verts, and then moving them. I'm not going to make the wheel anymore, so it's going to be something that looks like this. And maybe one great thing you can do is I want to give kind of like a space in between, and maybe I can move this part in as well to make it more, a little different. So I can move these ones in, right? So kind of make it so it's more muscular looking, I guess. And now that I've done that from the front, move this part in too, because the arm should be closer. Undo. If you made a mistake like that, it's okay. Just select the things you want and do it again. There you go. And if I want the shoulder to be tapered a little bit, I can do that. And I'm using very low geometry to do that stuff right now. So again, from the front, I want to deselect all, do a B select in the top corner, and then move that in. Right? And if it doesn't look good, right? I'm not sure how that looks. When we bring it into Unity, we can always undo that. One thing that's missing is the eye, but we're going to put that in separate. We can actually do some of that built in to the actual geometry itself. So we can think about where the eye is going to go for the head. My thoughts are it's either right here, right to there. And if that's the truth, we can select those vertices. So just go this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then we can pop those out. We can extrude them. And we can move them out towards the, kind of the face. So it kind of looks like there's a bit of a cyclops happening. And if you don't like that and you want to make it thicker, let's undo, right? And select the other ones too. So make it so that it's all this, if that's what you want, a big eye, right? So again, we can extrude and we can pop it out, right? Or you can make something else. Like if you don't like this idea, you can do whatever you like to do. The idea is you want to keep it simple. Okay, there we go. There's my robot. And again, I'm not totally happy with the bottom. Like I said, it's all about iteration and stuff like that and how it looks. And maybe in the future video that I make, I'll make the waist even cinched closer. Maybe I'll do it now. Again, it's artwork, like someone mentioned earlier. So you really have to kind of play with it until, it's not, like I said before, it's not good enough until it is, right? Undo. And, you'll get a hang of it as you do it. Yours might look better than mine, right? Maybe it does. I hope it does, right? That might look better. And maybe we bring the middle one down now because, you know what? That wheel isn't happening. There. All right. I think we're good. So now that's the first part. The first part is generating the model. Let's save. We didn't do that yet. So we're going to make a brand new, kind of folder. Again, we're going to call it COMP397 week 3 because we're kind of time out if we continue like this, right? And inside COMP397 week 3, we're going to kind of go in there and put in the model of, we'll call this robot. By the way, you're going to forgive me because I'll probably do it better on Friday because it's always better the second time. Could add a floating torus for the wheel. Yeah, there's lots of stuff you can do, Michael. You do it the way you like to, right? So really great, simple ideas that you can get away with. So I'm inside of week 3. I want to save my Blender file, and that's the first step. Now, let's talk about materials. And also let's talk about applying the modifier up here. So one thing is we have if I go back to layout mode, this is what the actual robot will look like in object mode. In Unity, it'll look just like this, right? So again, not too crazy, but we can add materials to modify things so that it's not as bad, right? And what I'd like to do is add a different material for the part of the body and a different material for the arms, right, as an example. But we also want to we want to apply the modifier. So if you look here in the modifier, you can go, you have to do this in object mode, by the way. So it has to be in object mode, not in edit mode, okay? You go here and you can apply the modifier. And now if I go back into edit mode, I have access to all of it. And this is where, if I had time, I'd modify this and add a hook on this side and something different on this side, right? But right now, it's just one. It is what it is. Okay? And again, if I want to make modifications, I still can. So if I want to look at it from the side and going to box select mode, and if I think that, this part right here can come in more, I can do that. So I can kind of do this and then, kind of select that and move it in. So again, more of a cinched frame for what we have here. Any kind of changes you want are doable. That's what I'm saying. All right, so there we go. So there's layout. That's kind of the robot, and that's where it's going to stay. But now I want some materials. So again, I'm going to go to the material tab. I have one material, and this will be like the body, the robot material. We've actually made the whole robot. We have all these different piece parts together. I could separate them. We might do that later in a later video or whatever. But you can see that I have everything as one, right? So I want a couple of, this robot's going to be primarily red in color. So let's add red. So go into the base color and make that color turn red. So again, you can go into RGB mode and turn red all the way up if you really want to. And however you want to do it, there's a red material. We'll call this the base material. That's the base color for the robot. And the way to see that would be to click it here, right? But we want to add some other materials. Let's add another material in there. We're just talking about materials right now. Let's add another material, and the new material, we'll make a new one, and we'll call this material kind of the chest material. So we can identify it, and let's make that material a black material. So kind of a pure black. Turn all these values down. So pure black. How do I apply it? Remember from last day, what we do? We go into edit mode. And then we select the parts of the model that we want to apply the material to. So again, you can actually do this so you can see the entire thing by clicking the viewport shading option, right? And again, what I want to do is I want to take this into kind of front select mode, and I want to take it into wireframe, so wireframe mode, and I want to select only the things with the B select mode that I want to apply. So that's these ones. And then when I go into going back into this one, I can go and look at the chest material and click assign. So now the chest material is black. And when I look at that in layout mode, it looks like this. And let's make the arms silver, right? Or some kind of gray color. And I'll make the this part, the eye. We can make the head white and the eye red just to make it really stand out. Okay, so the head white. So let's add another material. So we'll say the head material. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll say the base color for the head material will be pure white. So we'll kind of turn all those colors up. And just like we did before, we'll pop into modeling mode. We'll select the head. So only select the head. And I want to do this in X-ray mode, by the way. So just like we did before. So we can select everything, even the back vertices, right? We could have done this all in when mirror mode was on too. Doesn't matter. But we can assign the head material to the head. And we can take a look at it. Now it's white. And we can make this part red again. This part right here, this whole eye will be the red part. And if you really want to, you can make the middle part black, right? So we can say that for the eye material, right, we could vary part of it. We can say that the base material, let's change to face select mode here. And I want to make that the entire eye white or red, but the middle part is going to be black. So let's say we can say this part here is the base material. So I'm just selecting the vertices that are, or the faces, I mean, that are, that I want to make part of the base material. In fact, let's make everything the base material and we'll split it. We'll add more geometry to this part. And I'll show you how that's done. So here's the geometry. Let's use the base material, so make it red and assign. So we can see we got like this red area. And I want to make this area here that's like an eye that's in the middle, right? You can make it a different color, like yellow or white or black or whatever you want. But I need more geometry, right? So this is where I could have done this, hindsight being 2020, with my when I'm in symmetry mode, but it doesn't matter. So I can do is I can use Control R to split this first part. And it's going to be pretty simple. Control R to split this part. So I'm doing the same thing on both sides. This is where, like I said, the geometry can come into play. And I'm going to split these ones in half too. Notice that adds cuts to everything, which is good. So Control R for this part. And Control R for this part. And you can see what it's done. So it's kind of made geometry. Now, the only funny part is the middle didn't kind of loop together because of our problem, right, with this part. So either we can keep these the way it is, these 4 squares, or I can remove these squares and add the faces back. And I think I might do that. So again, what I can do is I can go to face select mode and remove these 4 faces. So I can remove them. And then what I can do is I have this middle area here. That's also something we have that's extra geometry. I can remove these 2 faces because they're inside, right? That was the problem. Whenever you do symmetry, sometimes you get that weird effect, right? So, and what I want to do is, because our faces were beveled like this, so we can always, again, guys, if you make a mistake, guess what you can do? It's back, right? And if I want to try, notice how that just doesn't cut this area up. Like these faces are just wrong or whatever. That's okay, because you can always, split the edges along too. So let's make a split. So again, what I want to take is this edge, and this is not what I anticipated, guys, taking longer than I wanted to, but this is how it works with modeling. So I want to take this edge here, the middle edge, and split it, right? So I'm going to go into edge select mode, select this edge, and select this edge, those 2 edges that are in the middle. And I'm going to press W, and I want to split or subdivide the edge. So what subdivide does is it adds in another vertex in the middle. See, it added that extra vertex there. Subdivide just like we subdivided last week. And then now that I have this one, I have a guide. So I can get rid of just the faces and I'm good to go. So again, I want to move into face select mode, kill the faces now. Those are good to go. Goodbye faces. And I can get rid of these faces. I want to get rid of the faces, but not the edges. And let's see if I can do that without killing the edges. No. No. Nope. So let's go into, I'll kill it after. Vertex select mode first. And what I want to do is join these vertices together. So the way you can do it is select one vertex and the other vertex and press F. And then the second vertex, this is kind of repair is what I'm doing, and press F along the ones that you want. And you can kind of create edges in here. And this is kind of like repairing my problem. Battle damage. And now that I have those things, I have extra edges right here. I don't have an edge in the back, but that's okay. Let's see if I can remove that face. Like if I can dissolve that face. So if I go face select mode now, can I remove it? And only faces. And remove it and only faces. So then I can remove that. And then I can remove this edge. And the reason why I'm removing this is extra geometry in there that I'll never see. Like this edge right here, I'll never see that geometry. So that's why I'm getting rid of it. And you can do the same thing for the middle line. There we go. So now that I've got those edges removed, I have another set of edges here that I don't need. So this edge, I know it's kind of difficult to see, and this edge, and I can get rid of those two. Those are internal edges. But what I want to do now is connect all the faces together. And I'm going to just, again, if you just take your time, don't worry if it's not perfect, or yours might look even better than mine, right? As an example, I'm just going to connect these faces together. Again, this kind of speaks to what I could have done if I was still mirroring. But who cares? By the way, I can always fix that. I can always undo, 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 and do it again, right? So it's not a big deal. But why have I done this? Because I want to be able to add a middle eye, and I didn't have that geometry before because I had that weird connection in the middle. So that's okay. I'm just pressing F, by the way, to add the faces in, like so. All right, cool. Now this is where the middle eye is going to be. So I want to select that simple face, these ones. And this is where I'm going to make that eye whatever color I want. So let's make a new material. And let's call this new material eye material. And let's make that yellow. Okay, so yellow material. So again, to do that, I want to go down this way. So it's kind of olive red and olive green turned up to make a yellow color, right? That's the eye material, and it gives you a sample of what that looks like. And then I click Assign. Yeah. Doesn't have to look beautiful or perfect by any means. And if you really want to do crazy stuff, you only want the middle to be red and the top to be white, you can do that. You can kind of select those colors, and that might be something that looks better, like almost like an eye that has the top part almost like, and we'll just go back into this. It's easier to do it without colors, where I just want to select kind of the top and the bottom and make that kind of the same head color. But the middle want to be red. So that's the red area there. So I can kind of go and make that the head color. And then we can see what that looks like. And if I like that or not. I think I liked it better the other way. Yeah. I think that's better. All right, so we got a robot and it looks unfascinating. The only thing we're missing now is the arms. And let's do that. So add a new material. We'll call this the arm material. And then our material is going to be like a silver color, and we're already there in terms of the color that we want, right? So this basic material, and it's easy to do. Again, we can just go back in here, go into front mode, deselect all, select the arm, then select the other arm. So select that arm, and then select the other arm. So you can, it'll stay selected, the other one, right? There we go. And then once I've got those arms selected, I can take my arm material and assign them, and then I can look at it and see what it looks like in shaded mode. There we go. And if I want to change the base color to whatever I want, and if I want to make it shiny or whatever, I could do that. But for now, I'm just going to change that color so it's a silver color. And if you want to know what the silver color is, we can always look at it online. And let's see what that looks like. So if I want to say silver hex color, right, we can choose a silver hex color, C0, C0, C0. Sure, okay, that's fine. We can go back to Blender and change that color so it's a hexadecimal color. So it's, and we have to remember that number because it's probably not going to come into Unity properly. There we go, more of a silverish color. And that's it, there's a robot save. And let's bring this into Unity. So how do we do that? Because it's our robot, well, we go back into layout mode. We don't have any textures for this guy. I was hoping to get a texture in here, but it's not going to happen today. And I'm just going to pull this guy into Unity file, and I'm going to export FBX, just like we've done before. And I want to deselect everything except for mesh and the selected objects. And I want to export the FBX in the same spot in our little sandbox. Okay, I'm going to put this guy up on eCentennial, just in case you haven't been able to follow along and you're not a gaming student. You'll have a model you can use for Unity. It's not a great model, by the way. I'm not happy with it. Remember, it's not good enough until it is. And in my opinion, it's not good enough. All right, so let's bring him in. So again, I'm going to do, here's my downloads, and here's week 3. And I'm going to bring in my robot FBX. Actually, I'll share my blend file too eventually, maybe at the end of the week. But for now, I'm just going to bring that FBX in there. Okay, there's that robot. So you can download it from eCentennial, please. Do that now. And we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to add some life to the robot in Unity, right? So first, let's make a Unity project, right? So, and where I want to put the Unity project is, again, I want to bind it with what I did earlier this week, or last week. So up online, I had a Centennial, COMP397, and you guys are section 2. So here's section 2. And inside there, I have a week 1 and a week 2. I want to make a brand new folder. So again, new folder. This is for your lab for this week, lab 3. And here is week 3. And I'm going to go into week 2. And I'm going to grab everything, select all, except deselect your library folder, copy everything, go into winter 2022 and into week 3 and paste. This is going to create everything I need except for the library folder. And then I'm going to launch Unity. And I'm going to make a brand new project based on that. So let's open up the new project. So open. And I'm going to go into desktop, Centennial, COMP397, and section 2, winter 2022. Grab lab 3, this one, and open it up. And while it's opening, I'm going to take questions. So questions, what did you feel about the process of doing some hard surface modeling? Is it hard? Is it easy? How did you feel about it? Were you getting the hang of selecting objects? The exercise for today was getting us to know Blender a little more. All right, that's what it was. So what are your thoughts? So you can put it in the chat. Or if you want to, you can come up on the mic before we take a short break. What are your thoughts? Easy, hard? Did it give you ideas of what you can make? Very simple objects. Anyone? Maria says, takes a lot of effort, but it's fun. Devansh says it's fun. Yes. Himali says it's interesting. Yeah, so to me, I think it's really hard. And I'll tell you why it's really hard. It's hard and fun. I love the fun part and interesting part. And Ruchit says little less than medium. Okay, cool. The thing that I think is that is tough for here is that yeah, Jerome says there was a lot of things I want to do with these techniques. And I agree. I think part of them is thinking about how we can use some of the techniques we talked about today. And we're only talking about a few things, right? because you know what? There's so much to learn. All we're doing is moving, selecting. We're doing basic things because I expect that some of you have never done this before. All right, in scenes, in my scenes folder, let's go to main, and we can see that before what we had was we had this as, and you could have made your own little world, right? That was bigger than this. And last day, what we did was when we ran it, we had a little controller where we can run around, right? And we can jump and all that stuff. You should have something like this as well. So I can run around and we can do this kind of stuff, right? Okay, cool. And what we want to do before we stop is in the models folder, I want to bring in that robot model. That's going to be my enemy, right? So let's do that. So again, I'm going to go into the downloads folder, and I want to grab that that robot FBX model, and pull it into the models folder. There's my robot. Okay. And the robot, I got to be very careful. Notice I have a bunch of materials here, right? And my model, I want to do the same things that I did last time. I want to do this. I want to read write. Now, generate colliders, I'm not going to do. And let me explain why. I think it's best if I make my own colliders for this one, right? Because if I generate colliders, my friends, it's going to make a mesh collider for each robot, and it's too much, right? So that's something that I recommend we not do. Let's definitely generate light map UVs, and you can look at a preview of what the model is going to look like right here. Okay, that's the thing to look at. Okay, there's my little robot. I'm going to apply those changes. And materials, I'm going to extract my materials like we've done before, like from last day, right? So I'm going to go to Assets, Materials, and I'm going to go there and extract. And then if I look at the materials folder, here's my materials folder. I have a bunch of new materials that I've created. Non-material. But what about that? What about that? Our material for our arm material. Remember that C0 stuff? Is that the same thing? Let's take a look at the RGB values, and you can see clearly that it's not right. Let's move that. RGB values seem to disappear in Blender, right? So let's do that. That's the right material. And now let's bring that little model in and see what it looks like. So let's bring the model in here, our little robot, and let's make sure that they're on the ground, right? That's what a little robot looks like. It's pretty scary. When you see this robot coming through, it's going to be pretty damn scary, right? So notice that it's okay with 3 meters. It can pass in areas of 3 meters wide, but it's not great passing into areas that are smaller than 3 meters. So if it goes into a 2 meter area, because the way I made it very wide, it won't pass through. That's something to note because of its arms, right? So let's rotate it so we can see it. So again, around the Z-axis, I'm going to rotate it like 180 degrees. There it is. Simple robot. And hindsight being 2020, I could have made this a little thinner. But we can do that here. We can go into the scale across the this axis right here, which looks to be the x-axis. I can change the x-axis's scale so that it's less than 100 for unity. So let's say something like 90 or 80. And how about on this side? Is it too wide, too thick? It's not bad, but you know what? Let's change the y-axis to 80 as well. There we go. So made some adjustments here in Unity just to make sure the robot is good. Look at that. He looks a lot better now. Or they look a lot better now. It's a they. Cool. What I don't like is this part. The shading that's going on here, right? It looks weird, but actually it gives it character too. All right, so that's fine. And that's the robot. Well, let's make that into a prefab. Pull it in. Here's the robot, right? Now we got our model. And that robot's going to chase our player around, right? Like we said. So that's the robot. Great thing is now that we have a robot prefab, I can duplicate them. I can bring another one in, like over here, right? And it's going to be the exact same. Okay. All right, that's it. Let's take a short break, and I'll put this up on GitHub. So file, save project, and let's put this up on GitHub. So let's close off Unity, and I'll go into GitKraken. I think you and I were using GitKraken. And if not, we can use, instead of GitKraken, we'll use whatever we have to use. But notice that, and if I'm not wrong, because week 3 was COMP397, I'm just to make sure that it's not, that's winter 2022, section 2, that's you guys. Pretty sure that's how I did it. Okay, good. So I'm going to stage all changes. And we're going to say added project files for week 3, commit files, and I'm going to push this to GitHub. So again, you remember that I have this repository online, right? Which you guys can always access, and that's this one. Okay, so there it is. So let's grab that, and we'll bring that into the chat so you guys have a chance to see that. Okay, so that's the one where you can download the project, right? Worst case scenario, you can start from there. All right, let's stop recording right now. And when we come back, let's take, right now we're staying at 5:30. We have about an hour left. I mean, not incorrect. Yep, we have about an hour left, which is perfect. Let's stop doing what we're doing right now. And we'll take 10 minutes. And when we come back, it'll be like 5:43, let's say. So that's when we'll be back. And at 5:43, we'll resume and we'll build nav mesh. We'll make a nav mesh agent, and we'll complete the day. So class resumes at 5:43. Actually, just make it 5:45 just to make it even. Why not? A nice number as opposed to an ugly number. I like 5s. All right, are we good? Can we come back at 5:45 then and continue? All right, guys, thank you. I'm going to stop recording now, and then we come back, we'll continue. Okay, I stopped recording, and I'm just